had someone like this, because I want both of you to table it to the 40th, you know?
Seeing it's 6 p.m., I'd like to call the April 21st, 2021 regular meeting of the Kenai City Council to order, and I'd ask if you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you're able.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel.
Here.
Councilmember Askin. Here. Councilmember Glendenning.
Here.
Councilmember Nackstedt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Here.
Councilmember Petty. Here. Councilmember Winger.
Here.
Mayor Gabriel, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome everybody here this evening. First up, we have agenda approval. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve the agenda, request unanimous consent.
Second.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Councilmember Nackstedt.
Thank you. I move for approval of the consent agenda and request unanimous consent.
Second.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there anybody from the council that'd like to amend the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to have the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Tonight on your consent agenda, you have the regular meeting minutes of April 7th, 2021, put forth by the city clerk. Approval of the bills to be ratified, put forth by administration. Non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license for Don Jose's, put forth by the city clerk. A special approval of the special use permit to the State of Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry for aircraft loading and parking, put forth by administration. Approval of a special use permit to Pacific Star Seafoods for aircraft loading and offloading, put forth by administration. Approval of the special use permit to Everts Air Fuel for aircraft parking, put forth by administration. Approval of a special use permit to United Parcel Service Company, Inc. for aircraft loading and parking, put forth by administration. Approval of a special use permit to Empire Airlines, Inc. for aircraft parking, put forth by administration. Approval of the First Amendment to a janitorial agreement for Reborn Again Janitorial, put forth by administration. Introduction of ordinance number 3205-2021, authorizing a budget transfer in the general fund, fire, and non-departmental departments, and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the Public Safety Improvement Capital Project Fund to provide supplemental funding to Fire Station Number 2 Station Alerting Project and the Dispatch Base Station Radio Replacement Project, put forth by administration, with a public hearing on May 5th. Introduction of ordinance 3206-2021, accepting and appropriating private donations to the Kenai Animal Shelter for the care of animals, put forth by administration, with a public hearing on May 5th. Introduction of ordinance 3207-2021, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund, police department, and accepting funds from both the Department of Justice and Alaska Municipal League Joint Insurance Association for the purchase of ballistic vests, put forth by administration, with the public hearing on May 5th. Introduction of ordinance 3209-2021, accepting and appropriating a grant from Derek Kaufman Fund through the Alaska Community Foundation for the purchase of library materials, put forth by administration, with the public hearing on May 5th. Introduction of ordinance number 3210-2021, amending Kenai Municipal Code Chapter 23.55 Pay Plan, Chapter 23.25.020 Pay Plan and Adoption, and 23.35.030 Pay Plan Amendment to amend the salary schedule, provide for a temporary employee salary schedule, and require that changes to the salary schedule be proposed by the city manager and be effective after approval of the city council, put forth by administration, with a public hearing May 5th. And that's your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is anybody from the general public that would like to comment on any item that is on the consent agenda, which was just read into the record?
If you are on Zoom, you can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. So as many of you know, Dr. Pete Hansen passed away several weeks ago, and he was a beloved member of the community, one of our original practicing physicians here in Kenai, who did a great deal to shape the city of Kenai. He was, there's fingerprints of the Hansen family within the city of Kenai. The Leif Hansen Memorial Park, the Eric Hansen Scout Park, soon to be opened doctor's cabin over at the visitor center. And so one thing I did on behalf of council was read a proclamation over there in celebration of Dr. Hansen's celebration of life service. And one of our council members asked me to read it here this evening, to just read it into the record. So I'd just like to do that right now. Whereas Kenai has lost an invaluable member of our community with the passing of Dr. Peter Hansen, and whereas his pioneering spirit inspired him to move with his family to Kenai in 1967, at a time when our town had no other doctors, hospitals, or medical clinics. And whereas through his love of our community and dedication to medicine, he became a beloved local doctor, a Boy Scout leader, national officer of the Alaska Academy of Family Physicians, an organizer and chair of the Alaska Academy of Family Physicians, and an active member of the Alaska State Medical Association, AMA, WONCA, and where he was a dedicated husband of 58 years to his wife, Carol Lee Hansen, and a loving father to his daughter, Bengette, sons Eric and Leif, and his grandchildren, Kjell, Bjorn, Annika. And whereas his memory lives in our community through the annual Kenai River Marathon that he first organized, Eric Hansen Scout Park and Leif Hansen Memorial Park, which are named for his two sons, and the soon-to-be open Bush Doctor's Cabin, which will display medical equipment and memorabilia that he used throughout his decades of medical practice. And whereas Dr. Hansen helped to shape the trajectory of Kenai's growth for over 50 years, from what he described as a, quote, boom town with camper trailers and tar paper shacks on nearly every block, to the thriving city it is today. And whereas the city of Kenai honors the doctor, his family, and their legacy, and wishes to declare our most sincere appreciation and gratitude for his exemplary service to our community. Now therefore, I, Brian Gabriel Sr., Mayor of the City of Kenai, Alaska, hereby proclaim April 17th, 2021 as Dr. Peter Hansen Day in the city of Kenai, and I call observance to the attention of all our citizens. Dated the 17th day of April, 2021. So I was very happy to do that on behalf of council on Saturday, and it was a very, very well attended and very nice service, and the legacy of Dr. Hansen lives on. Next up, we'll go to B1, scheduled public comments, and this evening we have Dr. Keith Hamilton with an update on Alaska Christian College's programs, goals, and future hopes. Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm 20 years late on this update on the college. It rang true with me that we live in the borough, so I always give a borough update, but why not the cities where we spend a lot of money and have a lot of students running around? So I'm doing this with both you folks and then the city of Soldotna coming up in a couple of weeks. So I want to take you through a slideshow here representing a lot of things that are happening, past, present, and future. So we are actually a couple of different entities. We have the Peninsula Conference Center and also New Hope Counseling Center as a part of our big scheme of what we're doing over there. Next slide, please. The vision of ACC is to be the premier college of choice for Alaska Native students so that our graduates follow and serve Christ within the church and larger society. So we are Alaska Native centric. Over 90% of our students come from rural Bush, Alaska. Go ahead. So back in the history, if any of you guys realize how this all came to be, we purchased in 2001 the Ballard property, Leonard and Fern Ballard. from CPCS on 10.5 acres with an 8,400 square foot building, including, and trying to wear, an indoor swimming pool, one of the few in the area. And we opened our doors to our first class on September 16th, just 5 days after 9/11. And unfortunately, some people couldn't fly in to start school because the planes weren't flying. Next slide. We opened with 22 students from 4 states, 7 different ethnic groups, and at that point, 80% Alaska Native and 16 staff that we were self-supporting. We raised funds to move to Alaska and to serve the students. We began back then as just a 1-year, non-accredited Bible college for Alaska Native young people. That's our first class plus all the 16 staff. Next slide. So now we're up to 29.5 acres from that 10.5, with now 20 buildings instead of just the one, built mainly by volunteer labor each summer. In fact, this summer we have 310 or so people coming to help us to build a project I'll show you at the end. But we've added 2 36-bed dormitories, 3 cabins, 4 apartment buildings, New Hope Counseling Center, the Peninsula Conference Center, which is our dining hall, which is rented out, a small chapel. Now we have a 6-classroom building. We doubled it this year, a full-size shop, a 6-car garage, and of course we have to have a yurt. That's on the left. You can't quite see it in the picture. Next slide, please. The latest project we just finished was a state-of-the-art classroom building with science laboratory, computer laboratory, and then 6 classrooms. This is an amazing building, all built this last round by volunteers from funds we've raised from the community and from outside Alaska. Next slide. The conference center we talked about is really a lot of you, actually, how many of you have been inside our conference center before? Yeah, most of the community has found their way one time or the other. But 64-bed dormitory completed also in 2018 between the 2 sides, I should say. There are 64 beds. And I want to just add that with Kenai Peninsula College's dormitories and our dorms, we have together combined, we have 152 and they have about around 100. There's 250 beds across the street from each other available for conference center use. Next slide. Wow, look at that. And this is an old picture of all the villages that our students have come. We're at 750 students have come now from more than 100 villages around Alaska. And by the way, there's about 250 zip codes in Alaska, that's okay, that are called communities, and we've had 100 so far plus, so pretty good outreach. Today we have 55 full-time, part-time, volunteer, and self-supported staff and faculty. So we employ a lot of people in our community, and our budget has grown from that first year to $500,000 to now $3 million in our general operating budget. Of course, our capital budget's much larger because we keep on building and adding more. Next slide, please. We also began New Hope Counseling Center in 2003 to address the needs of Alaska Native students attending ACC and later the Kenai Peninsula community. We'll come back to that. But in 2012 was a big year for us. We earned accredited status from the Association for Biblical Higher Education, approved by the Alaska Commission on Post-Secondary Education, and we are fully accredited by the United States Department of Education like other 11 colleges in Alaska. Next slide. Our mission statement, a little bit different than the vision, is to empower, that's the big word, to empower Alaska Natives through biblically based higher education and Christian formation to pursue excellence in character, learning, and service as followers of Christ. Next. So we offer 4 associate degrees today: behavioral health, Christian ministry, general studies, and paraprofessional education. And general studies is our most aggressive. Half of our student body is involved in that. And every single student that graduates from our parapro education program gets fully employed walking out of the school because they need parapro people in every school. Life-changing education, also we offer to prepare Alaska Natives for the 4-year college degree to enter the workforce or possibly returning to rural Alaska. Next slide. We also offer residential community living. 104 students enrolled in 2020. It's our largest ever in our history. And we have a personalized approach to education with intensive academic support available. The students that come to us come with high developmental needs for education, and we do a huge job of a lot of developmental courses before they can enter into the college market. Next slide. What we are not, everybody, we are not a 4-year college, but an 8 degree granting institution. We're not an online college, although, guess what? Last year we became an online college for just 1 year. We don't have authorization to do that beyond COVID. We're not a place where anyone can teach. Our classes are taught by master's and doctoral degreed professors. We are not a college only for Alaska Natives. We invite all who wish to join us in this unique college experience. My favorite one, we are not a cult at the end of Royal Place. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. All right, moving on. A little bit more about the Peninsula Conference Center. Go ahead, next slide. We offer housing and conference accommodations from May to September. We offer full-service cabins, dormitories, and apartment-style housing, again with 164 beds, a 200-seat conference room with a 150-seat dining option, and catering and full conference services depending on the time of the year and who's on staff. Next slide. Our counseling center offers free services to all the students of ACC and reduced rates for our alumni, but we're also open to the community clients. And in 2006 that happened, and now we provide over 3,000 last year client hours to everybody. About 3/4 of that is community members, 1/4 of that is Alaska Christian College students. And so the people who come from the community are given a fee for service, and they're given the opportunity. A lot of the employee assistance programs use us as well. And I just have to tell you, with 6 full-time and part-time counselors, they have become really an asset to the community to back up the hospital and to back up CPCS and also the Denina Clinic. If we took all of our 100 students over to Denina and dropped them in and said, please do counseling services for our students, they would be overwhelmed quickly. So we handle all of that. Go ahead. Part of our community and your community, our good neighbor commitment. We wish to serve the greater Soldotna Kenai community by offering our facilities, our staff, and our students to assist in bringing a better life to all who live here. And I'll say in that we do offer our facilities. A lot of folks, we have no walls around our campus. They're welcome to come. Our staff are engaged. We have, again, 50-some staff that are working in the community and volunteering in the community. And then our students, they have to do service hours as part of their degree, no matter what degree program they're in. So thousands of hours are contributed every year to the greater Kenai Soldotna community. Next slide. End up with our Vision 2020 capital campaign. If you drive in on Royal Place, coming up onto our campus, what you used to see is everything on the left, but we're building on the right. There's a beautiful 18,000 square foot gymnasium. That's the first phase. Phase 2 and phase 3 actually add another 10,000 square feet. But the road comes in from Poppy Ridge. So if you come up to KPC on College Road, instead of turning left on East Poppy, you'll go straight and you'll go about 400 feet and you'll turn left into the gymnasium. So this will be open to the community. It'll be used hopefully by the community, and you'll park coming in that way. You don't come into the main campus because there's no parking there. You have to walk down the road to get to the gymnasium. But it'll offer a very large multi-purpose room that is be larger than the Soldotna Rec Center. It'll be hopefully rented a lot for community events and weddings and those kinds of things. But that's our new biggest thing. It's a $5 million goal. We're at 4.750. We're just $250,000 away. So if you guys have any extra money, let me know. Next slide. And there's a picture of it. Could be completed in the summer of 2023. A beautiful foyer with lambwood beams inside, a beautiful gymnasium. And we also have a walking track. I know that when the field house was shot down by the voters in Soldotna, that was one of their months they want to have a wintertime walking instead of Fred Meyer or Home Depot. And so we're going to be offering that wonderful walking track, a 2-lane walking track around the gym to be used. So that's my presentation. That's where we are today. I'm sticking to it, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Hamilton? Councilman Winger.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for that, and I'm looking forward to your new addition with your gym. I think we've seen with all the shutdowns, there's a big need for more facilities for youth, and we're in the wrestling community, and we've been displaced. A lot of the teams have been displaced, so having more facilities that would possibly be able to be rented is great for us. But I just want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Thank you, member. Betty?
Councilmember Penny.
Yes, what a wonderful vision, and thank you for giving us the update. And are y'all having pre-signups for memberships to do the walking? Because I'd like to put my name on that list. Also, I can see many opportunities for fundraising to be held in your lovely facility.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us the heads up on this.
Yeah, we're hoping to be a good fundraising avenue instead of using other less beautiful locations for that, and have lots of parking and great access to resources. So thank you. I don't think we'll have a membership for walking. I think it'll be probably a donation.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, Keith, over here. Yeah, I wanted to say I'm really impressed with what you've done and your vision and what you're going to do, and I know you're going to do it. And I think I met you about this time of year, 20 years ago.
20 years ago,
when you were
sir.
going to buy the Ballard House, and
Yes.
we went through it. And,
Yes.
and there's this guy that has this vision. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to build these cabins, and I'm going to do a school. And I thought,
Crazy.
yeah, I underestimated you hugely, and then, but, you fulfilled those things well, and through the water system, those things that I did, and
Yeah.
then the dorms, and then you've moved on, and then you've got these other visions, and I know they're going to happen. And it really is beautiful down there, and I think you've just done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yes, just thank you for showing up tonight, and sometimes we take your contributions for granted. And as I go through this community and the other one, I can see your quiet and dedicated commitment to supporting the community and what we do here, and your presence is most certainly welcome, and I probably should walk a little bit too, so.
Make your way over. We'll find a way for you.
Thanks for presenting, and I hope this year will go a little bit better. I know last year I caught your segment on Sound Off. I think it was the other day, or maybe it was a little while ago, and it was interesting to see how you got through the whole COVID ordeal. So hopefully this year will go a little smoother.
Yeah. I just want to say one more thing, Mayor Gabriel.
Sure.
We are just wanting to make sure that we're the best community partner you guys can have. And with KPC, we've worked together. I don't know where a secular and a faith-based institution have worked better together in America to serve students of Alaska. So
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Council, we're now on item C, unscheduled public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Please.
I'm not sure if it's on the agenda
Oh,
or not.
no problem. Yeah, let's hear. What do you?
I'm Linda Anderson, and
Well, is it on this? Is it on our agenda?
I'm not sure. It's about Wildwood Drive being paved.
Oh, no, that's not on our agenda. That's on our capital improvement. But yes,
So
so
can I
this
say-
would be the appropriate time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can come up to the
Okay.
front here so we can get you on the record.
Mayor Gabriel, it is
Oh,
on
I
our
thought it was
agenda.
on just on the,
That's
part of the capital improvement?
D6.
oh, yes, D6. Okay, I'm sorry. That was on our.
Want me to wait?
Yes, so that would be on D, wait for resolution number 2021-26, which is Wildwood Drive Fund. Sorry. Yeah, I was thinking for somebody that saw the picture on that. Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to address the council this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda?
Anybody on Zoom can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Very good. Then we'll move on to public hearings. Item D1, ordinance number 3202, 2021, amending Kenai Municipal Code sections 1.15.120 rules of order and 1.90.050 proceedings to adopt the most current edition of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised as the adopted rules of parliamentary procedure for the city of council and for city boards, commissions, and committees. Pleasure of council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to enact ordinance number 3202, 2021.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to ordinance number 3202-2021?
Again, anyone on Zoom can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. We'll open up for comments from council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I want to thank the clerk for her second memo, the one of April 14, that's page 10 of the packet. Because I was concerned originally, by the first memo and maybe needed some clarification because whether there was any real substantive changes to the procedures that we use. And so reading through her memo, it doesn't seem like there really is. But I do have some questions, or perhaps the clerk could just walk it through, as it would be kind of like a quick mini training. Like number one, postponed to a certain time. When I boiled down, Madam Clerk, what you're saying, it's just that I think I understand there's really no change because it takes precedence over any other motion. Like when there's a motion to postpone on the floor, then that takes precedence over the main motion and other stuff. Is that basically what's being said? And there's no,
Sorry,
Yes.
through the mayor.
Ms. Hines.
For this particular one, we would be very far into the weeds and I would be begging for at ease. We would have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
And then somebody would have either called a point of order or appealed the ruling of the chair. And then the point of order or the appeal of the ruling of the chair would have to be germane to the main motion. And then somebody would have to have a motion on the floor or put a motion on the floor to postpone to a next meeting or later on in the meeting. So we would be several motions in, and I would be asking for a pause to get us a script to navigate us through it. But for this particular motions, it would be pretty far in the weeds for us.
okay, but there's no change in how we're operating generally. So if there's like motions to amend a legislation on the floor and then someone makes a motion to postpone, the motion to postpone takes
Correct.
first over everything else?
Correct.
And
Yep.
for discussion too?
Yep. For all intents and purposes, the way we've been doing our meetings and our business, we're not going to notice any changes that have been made in this new edition unless we get really far into the weeds, and I would be calling for an at ease before we ever got to that point anyways, because some of these motions we've never or have rarely used. And I would need the guidance too from the book.
Okay, very good. And then I have one other question.
Yes.
If I'm
Yeah, Vice Mayor Malloy.
Then on number 6, reconsideration, again, there's really no substantive change on how we've been doing that.
Correct. There is no substantive change on that. It really just includes a summary at the beginning of that chapter to clarify what all is entailed, the 3 steps that are entailed with a reconsideration. And it just provides that summary. That summary had never been there before, so you sort of had to wade through the whole chapter to put it all together, but this just gives you a new summary in the beginning.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I have.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yeah, I was intrigued by the second memo also, and it's a complex subject. But I'm liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they're asking for training and stuff, and maybe at some point in time you could give Robert's Rules 101 over again to them.
Sure.
They don't stumble or anything, but maybe they could be a little more precise in what they ask or how they manage the agenda before them. And so I think they're ripe for knowledge. Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciated the second memo I got. It didn't confuse me, I don't think any more than I already was, but it did help clarify some things for me, so I appreciate that added information. Seeing no other deliberation, clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Petty?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Do you want to suspend the rules and do D6 right now?
Sure, we can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to suspend the rules and we're going to move D6 up so you can testify, so you don't have to wait through the rest of them. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll move, suspend the rules, move D6 up to right now, and that's Resolution 2020-26, allocating previously appropriate funds for Wildwood Drive Rehabilitation Project. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2021-26.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2126? And you have the floor. Could you just state your name and
My name
address
is,
for the record, please?
Linda Anderson, and I live on Wildwood. I've been there for about 29 years. I just wanted to speak to you on behalf trying to get that road repaired. I've kind of been working, talking to the city manager probably past 7-8 years trying to get something done. And nothing's, been able to come up because I know the Kenai owns the land underneath it, and I know that it's been quite a problem trying to get that road paved. Who's going to pay for it, and this, that, and another. And so I really would like it to be paved. People are driving, it's a road hazard down there. I mean, I'll call them up and ask them to fill in the holes, and a couple weeks later, the holes are there again because it doesn't hold. The road, I don't think has ever been repaired as far as redone. I think it was like 1969 or right in that area, 1968, when the road was paved. We do have, with the prison being down there, we do have, sometimes fire trucks have to race down there as long, with the ambulances and stuff, when there's, a siren or something goes off down there. But, and that's heavy trucks going up and down that road, and it's past time to get it done. First and Second Street, a few years ago, they got their streets paved, and this one really desperately needs to be done. I figure, I pay taxes just like everybody else, and I really would appreciate it to be done. We're dodging holes all the time, especially more towards the trailer park, and it's time for an updated road for sure. I think it's like I don't know if it's the oldest road that hasn't been paved, but has not been paved since I think it's been built.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Anderson? Councilmember Winger?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming and speaking. I'm familiar where you live on that road, and I believe, correct me, did you have some slow down signs kind of?
No, that was a neighbor.
A neighbor, okay.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that you guys are trying to take a proactive approach on that. So I just want to say thank you for coming and testifying, because I know it's not easy, so.
Yeah, I think also a speed limit sign would be nice too, because people do think it's a.
That was my next question,
Yeah.
if maybe slow down, because I know you have grandchildren that you'd
Yes.
probably like to be able to play out there safely, and there are some
Correct.
speed racers. So I'm in agreement on getting that road done for you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council? Yeah.
I have a
Councilor
question,
Gunning.
but I have a question, but not for the testifier.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we agree. It's long overdue, and there was a right-of-way issue, ownership issue so that was a bit of a hang-up. Even I know the previous city manager spent some time even looking at trying to get money from Department of Corrections, because it serves mainly the Wildwood facility there. So certainly appreciate you coming forward and testifying this evening.
Thank you. And I know that when I talked to somebody last year, the city manager were just talking about having it gravelled, and I'm like, we don't want gravel, we want a paved road, as well. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-26?
If you're on Zoom, you can use the unmute or the raise hand feature.
Very good. We'll bring it back to council. Comments from council. Councilmember Glendenny.
Yeah, just a question, Mayor. Yeah, I support refurbishment of this road. I've been here all these years, and I'm aware of its existence and its deterioration. My only question actually is there the possibility of help from any other stakeholders involved in the road? That would be good to know if someone could respond to that, please.
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, Councilmember Glendenning. So I did put in a request to the state this year through Senator Machicki's office to request that the Department of Corrections pays for half of the cost of it. That would have to happen during the session, which is another 30 days. So I have put in the request. I talked to the commissioner. several years ago about the same thing, but it was the former commissioner. So the request has been made to see if there is the possibility that the state could share, because obviously the Department of Corrections is the primary user of that road, and they would benefit greatly from it being repaved.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a benefit to get it on the books, scheduled, get cost prices going, and hopefully other stakeholders will step up. Thank you.
Councilmember Askin.
Has there been resolution with the Kenai tribe as to the ownership? Are they transferring ownership or anything to streamline the process?
Mr. Ostrander.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Councilmember Askin. It's the Kenai Native Association that has the underlying ownership of that. So the approach that we're taking on this project is that this is just a continuation of the maintenance efforts that we've been doing for all of these years. So there's going to be no expansion of the existing road. I have reached out to the Kenai Native Association to see if during the design of this project, if it's determined that some additional width may be necessary, if they'd be willing to authorize that. Without that authorization, though, we would be held to keeping the project within the confines of the existing travelway, again, just as an extension of our maintenance program.
Councilmember Knoxted.
I generally have some concerns about that. The pictures that I've been out there too since the 60s is the lack of drainage, especially when you have asphalt. And I'm going to say that the road prescriptively is not just the driving surface. The city maintains the ditch as well, drainage. All roads, part of a road structure is not only the surface as it is the ditch as well. And I'm going to probably suggest and argue that there is a ditch there. It's been filled for the last 40 years or 50 years with sand and other debris. And if one were to dig where there ought to be a ditch, you're going to find culverts buried there. That is part of what the city should be maintaining. And asphalt, if you don't keep the water off of it, it will deteriorate very rapidly. And so I'd be concerned about spending $350,000, on the project and having it deteriorate in a few years. So I guess I don't have so much of a question other than I think that it's important that there be drainage and ditching restored to the project, and that it not only be shoulder to shoulder, that prescriptively it goes to the ditch. And that is how the borough looks at its roads too, that the ditch is part of the road because it's part of the structure. You don't see a road detail of a road like that without a ditch. And I don't think it was built without one either. So for what it's worth.
Any further comments, discussion? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Just to follow up on that, for the city manager, it didn't sound to me like you had a response from Kenai Native Association. Is that right? And do they have an objection to the city going ahead and paving it that you've heard?
Mr. Ostrander.
Through the mayor, Vice Mayor Malloy, I don't have a response from their board. I've talked to Vernon Stanford several times over the last couple of weeks and offered to go meet with their board. And I'm guessing that I will get an opportunity to talk to their board at some point, but I don't have a formal answer. I actually talked to him today on that exact question. And, I said, I assume that Kenai natives would have no issues with us continuing our maintenance program and repaving this project or repaving this road. And his initial response was, I don't think that we would, but I'll try to get you an answer by the end of the day. I didn't get it today, but my guess is I will meet with the board here at some point in the near future. Based on Councilmember Nacksted's comments, I think I will suggest that some ditching would be necessary as well. But before we proceed with this, I want to have some type of resolution with the Kenai Native Association before we go ahead with the project.
So to follow up.
Yes.
So under this resolution, well, that was something. Under this resolution, we'd be authorizing the use of previously appropriated funds, but I guess it would be kind of up to administration when they'd actually go forward and spend them. So there may be some details that you might be working out, or what's the timeline for doing this if you're going to get the project done this summer? And I apologize, I'm not trying to get too far into the weeds, but anyway.
Mr. Oster.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gable, Vice Mayor Malloy. So those issues would have to be resolved during the design portion of the project and before money was spent on construction. So what I would anticipate doing is going ahead, getting an engineer under contract to do the design. While we're working through that process, we'll get their professional opinion on the best way to proceed. As Councilmember Nackstead said, it could be that they're going to say that without that drainage, the project shouldn't go forward. So we'll have to resolve any of those issues with the Kenai Native Association as we go through that design process. They'll have to be resolved before we actually go ahead and issue an RFP for the construction of the project.
Thank you. That kind of answers my question, because if the design turns out to be more expensive than the money appropriated, you'll be back anyway. Right. So thank you.
And I know you don't have an engineer's estimate, but have you ran a rough estimated cost of what the total cost would be?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. We're anticipating that the $329,000 will cover both the design and the construction or the design and the repaving of the road. That does not anticipate that there's a significant amount of subgrade work that would need to be done, however, because we did have a design completed by Winscarth Bryce in 2008, and they did a full geotechnical on it, and that indicated that the subbase itself was sufficient in almost the entire way on the street. So we're going forward with the idea that there's not a significant amount of subgrade work that's going to need to be done.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Winger.
Yes, through the mayor, a question for Manager Ostrander. I'd like to address the issue on the signs. Would there be a chance to get more signs on that road? Maybe some children at play signs as well? I can say I think there's one sign, but I think people go pretty fast. Unless you're an officer, they go pretty fast past those. Would there be a chance of putting more signs out for the residents?
Mr. Ostrander.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Winger, yeah, for sure. I'll make a note of that right now and make sure that signage is a part of the project so that we sufficiently sign it. Certainly with speed limit signs, and probably, like you said, if there's a number of children in that area, slow down, children at play, something like that would be appropriate as well. So we'll make sure that we incorporate that into the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion from council? Seeing none.
Request unanimous consent.
Very good, thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-26 is adopted. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. So we have item D2, ordinance number 3203-2021, accepting and appropriating a volunteer fire assistant grant from the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service passed through the State of Alaska Division of Forestry for the purchase of forestry firefighting equipment. Pleasure, council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to enact ordinance number 3203-2021.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3203-2021? Anybody online, Jamie?
Anybody on Zoom can raise hand or unmute.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments, deliberation from council? Seeing Councilmember
Well,
Nexon.
it looks like a good deal. I notice we have Tony Pryor here, and I suspect this is why you're here, for one of the reasons.
One of the many, I guess, tonight.
And I was just going to suggest if you had something you wanted to add.
Chief Pryor, yeah.
As you may notice, members, Mayor Gabriel, members of the council, that it did drop this year from the previous, I think, 5 years. So with funding shortages everywhere, this one is limited to 5,000 this year. And we've had 7,500 for the past 5 or 6 years. So it did drop this year. And however, with the partnership with them, we continue to put in, they support us every year, which is, we're grateful for everything that they do for us. And we already completed our training, as you'd see in the mid-month report. So Forestry Partners comes in and does our annual training for us and refreshers. And we've already completed that, just kind of getting ready for the year. So we like to kind of get on top of this and have our stuff ready before May hits. So.
Thank you, Chief Pryor. Any questions of Chief Pryor? Seeing none, thank you. Any further debate or deliberation? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Petty?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Council. We're on now on item D3, ordinance number 3208-2021, accepting and appropriating a grant from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services, Division of Public Health, COVID-19 Emergency Operations Center for community funding to support efforts to increase access to testing and vaccination and decrease health inequities for all Alaskans. So, and for anybody that's listening out here, this, normally we wouldn't do this. We'd have an introduction, the meeting prior to public hearing, but there's a time frame issue here, so we're going to possibly do the introduction and the public hearing here this evening. So with that, pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to introduce ordinance 3208-2021, request unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, ordinance number 3228-2021 is introduced. So now we have for public hearing or accepting ordinance number 3208-2021, accepting and appropriating a grant from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services Division of Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Operations Center for community funding to support efforts to increase access to testing and vaccination and decrease health inequities for all Alaskans. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxton.
Yeah, I think you might have just done, I move for a second reading of ordinance 3208-2021.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion for a second reading? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Petty?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We now have ordinance number 3208-2021, accepting and appropriating a grant from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services, Division of Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Operations Center for community funding to support efforts to increase access to testing and vaccinations and decrease health inequities for all Alaskans. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt, or move to enact ordinance 3208-2021.
Second.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3208-2021?
If you're on Zoom, you can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for discussion. Councilmember Naxted.
Well, we had Tony Pryor up here the last time warming up, so this is round two if he wants to come up.
Chief Pryor.
I do have some questions.
Through administration. Councilmember Naxted.
Well, you might just answer all the questions if you had something to present, but I was just curious, the funds and how you see them being spent and how long that might take. It seems like a lot of funds, and I was just curious how you see that getting projected out.
It is a lot, and so Paul and I kind of got together, and then we got a group within the city that we could kind of brainstorm. So obviously they're trying to, the state is trying to get the opportunity for people to be vaccinated or testing or anything that has to do with the COVID out in any community in Alaska. So it was based on the population of each community. So ours, as you may have seen, we were able to get just under 327,000 based on our population. And so we worked with the group that put this together with the state and kind of tried to figure out with the borough, with the city of Soldotna Professional Pharmacy, and the kind of the groups that were already kind of performing a lot of the testing and the vaccinations within all of the Central Peninsula here, and how we could go about getting this out. And it's really there for the people that didn't have access to the mass clinics that we were doing. And so we tried to figure out where our lane, so to speak, could be for the city and for our fire department, what we could do. And so we took a group with a bunch of people within the city and said, you know, what's the best option? What should we do to move forward with this? And we have a reserve ambulance. And so we thought maybe we could put together a mobile clinic. And so for the people that are possibly homebound, I touched base with the fisheries, the canneries, and we knew that they would have seasonal workforce, which is eligible within the state as far as anybody that'll be either in the state for 120 total days or working 60 consecutive days. So we knew that those groups that were coming in would be eligible for it. And so I touched base with Packstar and was the first one I knew that would have the majority of the group coming in. And they said, yeah, we have them coming in. That would be a great option. And so we thought we could go down there and we could provide the vaccinations right there when they came in. And so we've already done that once, and we have another one possibly on Friday or Monday, depending on which ones we could do. So hence the reason why it's kind of imperative that we get this approved and get going on it. So it's a reimbursable expense. We can turn in the fees. So when we take an ambulance out for a day, we have a day rate. So similar to what we do for Division of Forestry, there's a day rate that we set. And so they provide in their guidance that you can rent a facility if you need to, but we were kind of one of the first ones that decided to do a mobile clinic. And they said, well, we can do the rental fees for the ambulance instead of you renting a place. So for instance, Soldotna, we've been having a few meetings with them, with the borough and them, and Soldotna is going to provide a walk-in clinic at the Y. And we thought we could do anywhere on the central area here, provide that homebound people. We can make appointments for them. And so if we can set 3 or 4 people a day that we can go out and we can vaccinate, because it's not really a short process. You got to go there and answer the questions, get them signed up, enter them into VacTrack system, which tracks all the vaccinations, and then wait afterwards after you administer it to make sure there's no adverse reactions. And so if we can set appointments, that's kind of one direction that we wanted to go with them. And then we're still trying to plan some of the bigger events. So June 1st, it will be open, as you guys probably heard with the governor, that he's going to open it up to anybody that travels into Alaska. You don't have to be an Alaska resident. If you're in Alaska, starting June 1st, you can get a vaccination if you want one. And so we thought another good idea would be when DIPNET season happens, partner with Soldotna Professional Pharmacy, and if our ambulance is at one site, North Beach or South Beach, or ours is at the dock, or vice versa, we can set up a tent at one and our mobile clinic at the other. And so that'll be another option. So as people are, and maybe the hesitancy of some of the people that are just learning about the vaccinations and then decide that, you know, it's been out long enough, I'm more comfortable with it, I've learned more about it, then they decide we're going to try to be able to offer that for them. So, and public health has already called us a few times to go do homebound ones. So we have those certain people that aren't able to get in but want it, and we'll go take care of them. So it takes care of the personnel time, whether it's straight time, overtime, it's all reimbursable expenses. And so the state still has cash of the supplies, so we can submit in to get them. But if we happen to purchase some of them, we can submit in and it's all reimbursed. some of the equipment, which is the tough part on there, we were able to get some equipment that we needed to make our mobile clinic possible. And so they agreed to that. So some of those funds, obviously, once we're going already, we need to get those as soon as possible so that we can continue to keep providing this mobile service. So there's a lot of stuff that is we can't give exacts yet because we don't know how it's going to shape up. Are we still vaccinating people in September and maybe in through the winter? It may be. It may be the case that there's another group that's out there that decides they want it. So we're going to try to be able to provide that for them. I know that the Pfizer one, we're expecting within the next couple weeks will possibly have their emergency use authorization approved to go 12 to 15. So if that's the case, if that happens, and again, they've done the studies, or the phase 3 studies, so it's the same studies that they did for the adults. And if that's approved, then you have another group that's available. So we have plans that we want to be able to offer that to, you know, people or the kids in the school. It doesn't go to the kids, it goes to the parents, you know, it's through Power Schools, and the parents read about it, and then if they decide they want their kids vaccinated, we set appointments and we'll go to the schools to do them. And if we can do that before the first group gets out of school, we could potentially get the whole series done. And as many of you know, the Johnson or Johnson & Johnson ones, depending on who pronounces it, they're on a temporary hold right now because they had 6 cases of clotting in the 6.8 million that they had. So they put that on a temporary hold, but we have plenty of the Pfizer and Moderna's available in the state, so that's what we're moving forward with. So.
Any other questions of Chief Pryor, since we got him here? Councilman Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yes, I think this is a fascinating process and proposition. I see it goes through March of 2022, and who knows what the future will bring us. So it's be penny wise and pound foolish. I think it's a good thing that we're doing this, and as you said, the program will evolve, and we'll learn as we go, and it's best to be prepared. And thank you for your forward-leaning viewpoint on this.
Thank you.
Councilman Winger.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say I've heard great feedback on the clinic that you guys are doing out there. Great feedback on your personnel. On average, how many people would you need to do these mobile clinics?
That's a great question, Councilmember Winger. What we're anticipating for the ambulance is 2 people. So when we go out and do the home visits, 2 people. But on the bigger clinics, it's at least probably 4, because what you have is people cycling them in and then checking them in, taking the paperwork, and then actually administering it, then coming out and one person watching them. So when you get more people than just a couple, it takes more to observe after the vaccination while they're giving it and checking them in. So probably about at least 4 on the larger clinics, and that's kind of what we're planning moving forward. But there's also some stuff, so like Rebecca or us, when we're able to take appointments and do these, all of the time that we spend doing that is all reimbursable time, so it's not just at the clinic alone.
Okay. That was kind of part of my follow-up question was making sure the time was reimbursed. And are all the guys kind of cycling through to help out, or is it just kind of a set group of workers that are doing these clinics, or is kind of everybody pulling those?
Councilmember Winger, all of them have participated in it, and sometimes some are available, some are not. So it's a sign up, it's a voluntary sign up. We just check with everybody who's available for the days, and we are planning to do them a couple days. You know, we're looking at what days work the best, that we're going to get the most people signing up for. And again, that's maybe a little bit of an unknown. We're checking with Soldat and Professional and the other groups that are doing them on a daily basis to see what days work better. And we're kind of leaning right now towards Tuesdays and Thursdays to kind of have a forward-looking sign-up for our guys and say, these guys are available this day and they're ready to go. So we got people on staff ready to go for a couple days a week and set those appointments. So as people start calling us, we just put them on a list and set the appointments. And when they're done, it allows us to bring it back and enter them into VacTrack system. Also, I don't know if I mentioned, but there is Washington State and a few other states now are able to see the data that we enter into VacTrack. So in other words, I posed the question to the state is like, why don't we do, if they're thinking about it, there could be a campaign strategy for come up and on your vacation, if you decide you can't get it in another state and you want it here, you can get your initial one, and that data can be seen in Washington and other states that share that, and they can go back and get their follow-up one when they're down there. So many states, I was just down in Oregon, and you can't, it's still 65 and older, nobody can get them yet. So they're so far behind in most of these, and a lot of other states. We're way, way ahead.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Penny?
Do you have a number for the community members in the city of Kenai who have received the vaccination?
Not in the city of Kenai, for sure. I know we have done well over 1,000 ourselves, just of doses that we've given. So on the peninsula, I think the meeting, I wanted to, on the whole peninsula in general, I think they thought 20,000, but that's just a ballpark of what I think they were saying at OEM the other day. And that would be able to be checked with public health, or I could check with Leslie over there to see what the number is down here.
And then another question, if you do this mobile opportunity and go to individuals' homes, are we held liable as a city because y'all are going out there if there was adverse effects for individuals who took that vaccine?
So there is a waiver form that they sign that there's a program. I think I mentioned that on the one the first one that I came in and touch base with you guys on. But there's a fund that's set up. So if something like this happens from these companies, that there's a fund set up that they can do that. If it's something that we happen to do wrong and stuff, it would be like us going to a regular medical call. We would be liable if we didn't give the administration of the needle right or something like that. Yeah, we could have some of that, but there's a fund that's set up if there's an adverse reaction, and they sign a waiver that they understand, they know the risks of getting a vaccination, and they sign a waiver on that. And it's similar, the one that you go on, I don't know if you've seen the one that's on the prep mod system that you sign when they go up. So we try to do it through that system because it works well, and all of that stuff is on there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Chief Pryor, thanks for coming here and answering all our questions and everything, and especially for putting together this mobile clinic. It's a really fantastic idea, and for going out to our local seafood canneries and everything to help with their workforce. That's great, and the homebound people, and I can kind of visualize maybe some like I don't know, a little kind of promotion of it in the July 4th parade. I can see your mobile clinic van in the parade itself, so that's pretty cool. And then also, I like your idea about DipNet, catch a fish, and, if you want to get vaccinated, you can too. And it's great to hear that the states on the West Coast are sharing this data so that, like you said, people could get, if you need 2 doses in 2 places. So that's great. So thanks very much. Appreciate what you're doing.
Any other questions? Councilmember next then.
Yeah, just one more. it sounds like you have lots of ideas to do here, what you can do here in the city, and that's great. And, you know, I think we just approved not long ago a mutual aid, so I know you go outside of the city boundaries for those things. So I don't think I heard you say that might be a possibility of the mobile vehicle going outside of the corporate boundaries. Is that something that you see happening?
Yes. This Councilmember Nexted, yeah, that's what we wanted to do. Our goal is to take all of Sterling, Kasilof, Soldotna, Nikiski if need be, and all of the general Central Peninsula area here and take care of that. So that Soldotna could focus on the walk-in clinic, the borough could focus on the unincorporated areas outside of theirs, and do they're really the ones that have the ability to get the information out to everybody. So one of the strategies they're working on is how many people are Spanish speaking, or all the different languages that could be the barrier, and getting that information out to them. And they're so much better set up to do that's kind of their lane. You know, we'll provide them, they can, if they need that person, if they've contacted them and they've given them the information and they want a vaccine, then they can send them to us. We'll book the appointment and go do it. But they're set up to give the information a lot better than we are. So that's kind of the lane that they chose to do, and that we're asking them, you know, to help out and do, because again, they have the call centers, they have the staff that can put together the information packets that can be mailed out, and they're developing more strategies on how they can reach as many people as possible.
Thank you. I guess I've got a follow-up. I know the governor's office is looking for ways to, you know, increase the number of vaccinations and participation. I think they know there's a, you know, probably some reluctance based on what you had talked about. You know, people want to wait and see. Some may have, you know, religious objections. Others might just have political objections for whatever reason. But the point is that they want to try to see what they can do to sort of push, you know, more people into vaccination, because the you know, Dr. Zink's comment to when we had her on as a work session was that they were shooting for about 70% for, you know, to get kind of that immunity or community immunity level. So, I mean, is there anything that you would recommend to try to, you know, people that might be on the fence? I mean, I know there's going to be people that absolutely won't get it, but for folks that are hesitant, I guess.
Yeah, Mayor Gabriel, that's the question that everybody's been kind of thrown out there. What's the best way to get, and it's all about education. Nobody wants to force anybody to get the vaccination. They just want to give them the information. So it's how can we get information out to them that they can take and read and digest and say, yeah, okay, this one makes sense to me, or how do I weigh my options? So working with this group locally, that's the kind of thing that we're thinking of. Where can we give the information that all people can go and say, I'm going to study these ones and look, and then take this to my physician and have that discussion with them and say, which one, if any, is best for me? And then we'll have the option to wherever you want to go to get it, you can get it. And no matter which kind it is, if your doctor prefers the Pfizer, the Moderna, or which one for you, those are available for you. So his goal, or the governor or the state's goal, was to try to find that how to get that information out there. Hence this program that is started because we had all these mass clinics and we were getting lots of people to show up for them, but now we're in that, you know, below 50 range every time we try to do one, or 20. So it's more this the saturation that, especially down on the peninsula, that's happened. How do we reach the single individual or the small groups? And that's what we're kind of focusing on now with this program, is how do we get these groups that haven't had a chance for the big ones and are maybe coming in for the seasonal workers, and how can we reach them? So we don't have every answer yet, but we're just trying to figure out how the best way we can get that information out to people.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Pryor. Don't see any more questions, so we'll bring it back to the body here. Deliberation, comments from the council? Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Just sit here and chirp approval and thank you for your effort. And it's a comprehensive plan and well conceived. Lots of participants with other municipalities and businesses. And I think we're on a positive path here. Thank you.
Councilmember Winger.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I know there was some concern, which is why we had worked on that vaccine transport program. There was some concern of people having access to even getting transportation to these clinics. So I wish we had this a couple months earlier, but better to have it than not at all. So thank you.
Councilmember Petty.
If you don't utilize all the resources, what happens to the resources from this grant?
Councilmember Petty, resources as far as, it's all reimbursable, so we can't, we don't actually get it until we spend it.
Oh, okay. So if you don't spend it, you don't get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the total that we're allotted for our community based on the population, but that doesn't mean that's what we'll end up spending.
Any other questions of Chief Pryor? Thank you. And we'll pick up our deliberation. Any further discussion on ordinance number 3208-2021? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Nextet.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Yes.
Councilmember Petty.
No.
Councilmember Winger.
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel.
Yes.
Councilmember Askin.
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Council. We're now on resolution number 2021-24, authorizing the city manager to enter an airline operating agreement and terminal area lease with Hageland Aviation, doing business as Rambler Air LLC. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Nextet.
Thank you. I move to adopt Resolution 2021-24.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-24?
If you're on Zoom and you want to testify, you can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Discussion from council. Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. This is a pleasant surprise, a new opportunity for us. Is there any backstory to this, or we'll just take our blessing and go on?
Mr. Osterner.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Glendenning. Well, again, seeing as how this really is Mary's very last meeting as an employee of the city, I'd ask her to provide a backstory, because I know there is some backstory here, and she's been working with these folks for a bit, so what she can share, I'd like her to share that with council, if you're all right with that, Mary.
Ms. Bonron.
Mayor Gabriel, members of council, I have been talking to them over the past few months. Due to the pandemic, things have been really slow. We're attempting to recover, and they have a lot that they had to get in order. They're, starting up new under a 135 certificate. They still don't have approval yet through the FAA, but they hope to mid-May. 6 to 8 flights a day, 7 days a week is what they're anticipating. I know for sure there'll be Navajos. I'm not sure about the 1900s, but we're excited that they're coming in. They have a brand new office, ticket counter space, bag belt system, everything ready to go for them. So I was hoping they would come tonight, but I know one, the VP, I believe, is out of town. So yeah, it'll be exciting. We haven't had 3 scheduled airlines in there for a few years since Lake and Penn left. So it's nice to have an empty space full. Wish them the best of luck. Any questions?
Councilmember Glendenning.
Just a question. Where all do they fly? I mean, they're Alaska, but out to the bush or Fairbanks or
I know they're in
Ketchikan
the
or-
bush,
Yeah.
but I know that they've been working on getting spaces in other airports, other terminal buildings, and I don't know the final on that yet. I think it's potentially like 8 communities.
Wow. Great, thank you.
Councilmember Petty.
You may not know this answer, but there's a huge need for someone to run flights after the last flight back into Anchorage down here on the peninsula. So they would have a monopoly on that if they chose to go there. And
So the last
the last-
flight,
yeah, from midnight till 4 a.m.
oh, from Anchorage to Kenai?
Yes.
Yes, there is a demand for that.
Yes, there is. I
There
think they
is.
could put a really premium price on it and make a profit.
Yeah, I know in the past, when we were under normal conditions, sometimes they had like a 2 a.m. But I will definitely pass it along. And if, it is. They like the last flight out of Kenai, and they want the last flight from Anchorage back into Kenai. Yeah, those are really popular.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes, I agree with what Glennie said. There is definitely a need for those earlier, later timeframes as well. But I just wanted to say thank you for everything you did, and what a great parting gift to bring in a third airline before you leave. So thank you for everything, Mary.
Yeah, I hope they, thank you. I wish them the best, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh,
Oh, hang on. Let's go.
Well, maybe I can even spark more questions. I don't know. Just kind of an operational question. I was wondering if they're going to be up using the gate, or are they going to be off some side door, and how are they going to, are they going to be, we know where the two airlines park now when they're loading and unloading. It's sort of a set thing. Where are they going to be, and how is that going to
Okay,
work?
they are going to be in ticket counter 3 and have that office. They also are going to be gate 3, which is between Raven and Grant. There is 3 gates there. And then we have that passenger loading zone out front, the white box that we normally paint with Raven on to the right. And the Grants to the south, they're going to be at the top of that box.
Very good. Any other questions of Ms. Bondron? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested for resolution number 2021-24. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-24 is adopted. Next up, we have resolution number 2021-25, awarding a contract for external audit services to BDO USA LLP. Pleasure of council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to adopt resolution number 2021-25.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-25?
Anybody on Zoom can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments, deliberation from council? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Council members Askin and Glendenning and I participated with our finance director, Terry Eubank, and our public works director, Mr. Curtin, and we had 2 really good proposers in BDO USA scored higher in the evaluation that we did. So that's why the recommendation is for council to award the contract to BDO USA. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd also like to recognize and thank our council members, Askin, Glendenning, and Vice Mayor Malloy for their work on the committee, and thank you to our finance director, Mr. Eubank, for suggesting that as he rightly pointed out, this is our contract, so we should have a say in it. So I appreciate that. Any other discussion from council? Seeing none.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-25 is adopted. We've taken up resolution 2021-26, so we're now on to resolution number 2021-27, authorizing a budget transfer in the general fund fire department. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Naxted.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-27.
I'll second that.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2021-27?
Those of you on Zoom can unmute or use the raise hand feature.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council? Councilmember Naxton?
I was just going to request unanimous consent, but go ahead.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yeah, just a point of information. This plan, of course, is necessary based on the current world we live in. I just, for my own information, is this, perhaps for Tony through the mayor, is this a separate study or program or an enhancement of what we used to call the all hazards plan that we would submit to the borough from the city? Are they parallel or are they the same or different? It's kind of a wonky question, but I need to know.
Chief Pryor?
Councilmember Glendenning, our EOP, our Emergency Operations Plan, hasn't been updated since '06. So we're long past due on it, and it has to work through us, through the borough, to the state, and so there's many things in there. And all hazards teams are teams that will incorporate into the Emergency Operations Plan. So for instance, a flood team or something, some of those, this plan will address all of that stuff. So no matter if it's a conflagration, big fire, earthquake, any of those things, our plan has to incorporate that. So those all hazard teams, such as the borough has, will be incorporated into that. And we need to make sure that our plan adopts what the borough has, what the state has, and everything that's up to date. So there's many things on there. We've already did some of the preliminary work to identify the old plan, the new plan, areas that need to be changed, new information that needs to be brought in and put in, taken out of these, and then so that's what we're anticipating using the funds for.
So it's going to be an overview, taking the best of the best, and we'll have one plan for hazards when we're done.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember or Vice Mayor Malloy?
Just have another quick question for you, Chief Pryor. So your supporting memo says that you've identified a temporary employee person with previous experience in the area that you need, and so in your judgment, you'll be getting the input that you need for this from that person, as opposed that would be similar to what you would get from an independent contractor, like.
Yes, Vice Mayor Malloy, the person that we've identified has had previous work on the borough's emergency operations plan, working with them, and did temporary work for us already here at the city. So is kind of familiar with people at the city as well as the borough, and so I'm very excited to get her.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I don't see any other questions for you here, so I appreciate your time. Is there any further discussion on resolution number 2021-27? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll. Oh, you did. Was there unanimous consent request? Oh, that's right. We jumped there. Did you actually request it?
I did.
You did. Okay, very good. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-27 is adopted. That brings us to G14, action approval, purchase orders over $15,000. Oh, you'll take a break first? All right, let's take a break before we move this, or discuss it actually. Call our meeting back to order. Council, we're on item G14, action approval purchase orders over $15,000. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve purchase orders over $15,000.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Oh, Councilmember Glendale.
Yeah, just, I found it interesting that, you know, the device that's used, and I used to think that maybe EMTs were furniture movers, but just to have something like this to move people safely and securely enhance my understanding of what they do and how they do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Requesting unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? See none. Jim, did you have another? Council? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
See no objection, then purchase orders over $15,000 is approved. Next up, we have discussion COVID-19 response. Mr. Osterner.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So we have no employees currently in our COVID protocol. As far as CPH, a couple weeks ago, we started seeing a bump in the number of folks in the hospital. Last report I got was on Monday of this week, but there was 5 COVID positive patients. Over the last 2 weeks, averaging between 4 and 5 folks in the hospital at any time. You know, the previous several months, it was rare to find anyone in the hospital. So we've clearly seen an uptick here recently, and I think that probably coincides with our move back into the high danger range, where we were at intermediate or low there for quite some time. In the library, we've had several folks over the past week that have expressed concerns over the library's mask requirement. Right now, the library and the senior center are the 2 city facilities that require masks. And the way that the library handles this right now is if someone comes in the library and they refuse to wear a mask, they ask them to leave. So it's not recommended, it's actually that it's required to wear a mask. And there, like I said, there's several folks over the last week that have talked to both Scott and I about that and have some concerns about that. Scott and I actually met with Katja today to discuss kind of what the plan was going forward and you know, what the primary justification for it was. It was a good discussion, you know, and one thing I will tell you is I lean very heavily on the department heads that run the different city facilities around the city. If that department head determines that a certain policy works for their facility and is important for them and their employees, with very few exceptions, I will defer to the department head. In this case, Katja felt it was important. Her employees were supportive of it as well. So they have had this requirement in place. It does still follow CDC guidance, which is important. There is guidance that justifies it. The other important thing I think to mention about the library is that they have tried to be very inclusive. So if you are hesitant to wear a mask, if you don't want to wear a mask in the facility, they have remote printing that you can do from outside the facility. They have drive-through pickup services for anyone that doesn't want to come in the facility. You know, if there's something else that they need from the library is very welcoming as far as accepting their calls and working for them to get them what they need. We did talk about what the plans are going forward, and if we move back into that intermediate risk, we're going to remove that mask requirement and and she will change the signage on the facility to say that masks are, at that point, strongly recommended. But I want to make sure the council knew that there were several people in the community that have been talking with administration about the library and some of their concerns with that masking policy. Last thing I have is an update on the senior center. We are continuing to increase the services there slowly over time. We now have 2 days a week when congregate meals are in the facility. The uptake has been relatively slow. We've been getting about 14 people per meal, so nothing like it was prior to COVID. But activities are picking up and they're strong, having at least 2 activities every day in the facility. Home meals are still very strong. Individual appointments and drop-ins are increasing. We're still providing that medical transportation, but the uptake on that has still been pretty spotty. But we are continuing to increase services there, and we'll continue to do so over the next month or so. And that's all I have unless council has questions.
Thank you. Any questions for administration on COVID-19 discussion? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ostrander. That brings us to commission committee reports. Council on Aging.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Like the city manager said, they are doing in-house meals over there twice a week, and they were very looking forward to that. Another thing that they have put in place is the adoption of the Code of Conduct and Ethics that are the standards over there at the Senior Center. Also, I just wanted to let everyone know that the March for Meals did not occur. I'm sure you are all aware of that, but they are accepting donations. So if any of y'all would like to participate in that, that's an availability for y'all. On our next opportunity, we're going to brainstorm and think about a new name for Council on Aging, so it could be more inclusive and not so negative. And so we have the opportunity to do that, and that's going to be happening at our next meeting, which will be May the 6th. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Your light was, oh, there you.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Let me update that. It's going to be May the 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Airport Commission.
Thank you. Airport Commission met on April 8th. They had some unfinished business. First off, they had a discussion and agreed on a final sign configuration, and that's included in the city manager's report for you guys to take a look at. They had a discussion on the conference room use agreement, and they also discussed the airport budget with Mary. And then they had a series of new items new business that we had this evening. They discussed and recommended the special use permit for DNR, the special use permit for Pacific Star Seafoods for aircraft loading and unloading. They also a special use permit for Everett's Fuel for aircraft parking, special use permit for UPSCO, United Parcel Service, for aircraft loading and parking, a special use permit for Empire Airlines for aircraft parking, and a First Amendment to the janitorial agreement to Reborn Again janitorial. And then they had a discussion item to update on the airport lands brochure, and I asked for that to be included. That's an informational item at the very end there. So if you missed it, because it's at the very end, take a look at it. And they will have their next meeting on May 13th.
Thank you. Harbor Commission.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Harbor Commission met on April 12th. It was a hybrid meeting. Some of the commissioners participated in person, several participated via Zoom. Director Curtin presented an update on the bluff erosion project. There was a lot of questions regarding that and good discussion. In addition, the Harbor Commission talked about a lot of other subjects that were not on the agenda, including the dip net fishery and getting an update from Mr. Curtin on the dip net fishery and what the plan was for this coming year and what revenue and funding and expenses are. Also discussed the opportunities for vendors at the dock during the dip net fishery and whether that had been being looked at. There was also a discussion regarding dredging and dredging of the river and capital projects. A lot of discussion regarding that, and Mr. Curtin discussed his efforts to recruit all the positions that he's looking for recruiting for the department right now, including the capital projects manager that we recently approved that going forward. So it was a The commissioners were really engaged in the meeting and had a lot of good questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Commission?
Yes, our next meeting will be the first Thursday on May 6th.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on April 14th. There was one item on the agenda, it was a preliminary subdivision plat of TKC subdivision. This is in the area of, I believe, 2nd and McKinley. And there was a motion to approve the resolution and then a motion to postpone. Director Foster explained that the utility line drawing that was submitted would not work for a subdivision as submitted, and the applicant needs to provide a letter of intent about what design they would want to use. This is a curable problem. It's just something that can be handled with good technical discussion. Our next meeting is April 28th, and excuse me, it's set to include 2 conditional use permits, a plat, and possibly the post-plant for a resolution of the PZ 202106 that I previously discussed. Commissioner training is upcoming, but will not take place before the next meeting. Commissioners are very, very interested in not only getting basic knowledge for the relatively new commissioners, but also a revitalization of understanding for all the commissioners that are currently serving. And the next meeting will be April 28th here in this room. Also, let me look here. This was a commissioner comment. Commissioner Greenberg mentioned that the coordinator for the spruce bark beetle mitigation program was recently on the radio discussing the issue and may be available to speak to the city about it. I know there's a lot of concern about spruce bark beetle and multi-government interaction, and this is just another opportunity for discussion and learning. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautification Committee?
Yes, we met on April 13th. June Harris from the Historical Society asked that we address flowers under the historic cabin sign that they had moved last year. We discussed the flower list and volunteer plant day, which is tentatively scheduled for the 2nd week in June. And Mr. Freitas went over all of the 21-22 goals and objectives and did a short review of the budget and tentatively set August 10th for the garden tour and also plants and flowers to put around the new doctor's cabin. And our next meeting is May 11th.
Thank you. Under Mini Grant Steering Committee, there is no report. On the report of the mayor, I did attend a joint chamber with Representative Young, which he had over in Kenai. I think it was on April 9th. It was a Friday, and was able to be seated at his table and got some good one-on-one time with him and his lovely wife, and it was well worth it. And he's interesting as always when he publicly speaks. 88 years old and still going strong. It's amazing. I did have a teleconference with the governor and his staff, and the topic was what I alluded to earlier with Chief Pryor, try to get some collaborative effort among communities to try to ramp up vaccination participation, because if I remember the numbers right, they ran through them pretty quickly, and I think those are online or available. But I think statewide we're at like 36%, so vaccinated. Does that sound about right? And the peninsula was lower than that, but if you looked at a 70%, you know, participation rate for some level of, you know, continued, you know, immunity for the community immunity, I guess. We're only about halfway there, so that's their concern is to, since they've opened it up, Alaska's ahead of the curve, obviously, from other states, and we have vaccines available for 16 and over right now, so there's a large part of the population that could potentially get it. So, and there's another Zoom meeting, online meeting with him and staff tomorrow, I think, on the same topic. Last Saturday, I did attend Dr. Pete Hansen's memorial service, and again, it was well put together, and I was honored to be able to present a proclamation on behalf of the council. One other thing I wanted to circle back on was our last meeting, Stephen Rouse with the Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiative. If you remember, he presented regarding the work that they've done around the peninsula and in the city of Kenai, and it requested that we look at making another land donation so that they could continue on with this senior and affordable housing in our community. I did reach out to Mr. Ostrander, and I had already talked to Ryan Foster, our planner, to sort of get his view on that, and it sounds like they're okay with that. There was a concern that, you know, this current level isn't a problem, but you could get to a point where you don't want to have, you know, sort of concentrated low income or senior, maybe, you know, spread it out a little bit. But in this case, they didn't seem to have an objection to the parcel of land that was referred to. So I did ask administration to put that on our next agenda. I'll sponsor it, but if there's anybody else that wants to jump on board and sponsor it, no problem whatsoever from my perspective. Just let Ms. Hines know. And with that concludes my report. Administration report, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So hiring update. We are hiring quite a few folks now. We had second interviews for 2 candidates for the airport manager position. They're actually occurring this week. We had one earlier this week, and we're having another one tomorrow. Interviews for all 3 of the public work positions are occurring this week or next. So you know, there's a lot of positions to fill at once. It is interesting how difficult of a hiring environment it seems to be. I'm hearing that from both governmental agencies and private businesses both, that hiring right now is just really difficult. So I feel confident about a couple of them. It's going to be interesting to see if we can fill them effectively. Terry Eubank and I had a meeting with Mark Hyland of Beacon. They operate the training facility over on Marathon Road. And, you know, we've been wanting to put that concessionaire agreement out on the street with an RFP once that all the work was done on that project. Now that all the props are fully functional, the building has been upgraded, it was time to put that out on the street. But like so many other things, the environment for that type of RFP right now just isn't very good. Training hasn't come back to the point where it was pre-COVID. We've committed to work with Beacon to try to drive as much use as possible as we can over this training season and then into the fall, and then revisit that, see if the bidding environment is more favorable, and take that out on the street when that does occur. So in exciting news, we had a submittal yesterday for finalization of a plat, which is phase 4 of Windhaven Estates, which is right adjacent to Inlet Woods. It's a 31 lot subdivision adjacent to Inlet Woods. And the plans are to begin building new houses in that subdivision this summer. So this is a phased project that there was maybe 20 or so houses built, but the plat was originally approved back in 1998. And so this is just finally the next phase of that. It's taken that long to get this done. So we're excited to see 31 new potential houses being built in the city. I did want to say, I hope everyone saw the paper today. The Peninsula Clarion was in fact the city of Kenai Clarion today, talking about the finances of the city. Terry did a great job talking with Ashlyn O'Hare of the paper, filling in folks about the financial situation of the city. Also a good article with Dave Ross talking about our police and the great job they do for our community, and also made the statement that our animal control, that everybody loves it apparently, because we had $1,000 of folks donating. So I like the fact that it was the city of Kenai Clarion for today. As far as recognition of an employee, so you know that this saying goes, you don't know what you have until it's gone. So I'm going to talk about Mary for just a moment. And I don't want to say that I didn't know what happened, because I enjoyed working with Mary the entire time I've been here. But she's been helping Ryan and I through these airport manager interviews over the last couple of weeks. And it's become increasingly evident as we've gone through these how much knowledge she has accumulated over the years. And regardless of who we hire, and I'm actually very pleased with the folks that we're interviewing right now, but regardless of who we hire, it's not possible to replace that type of institutional knowledge and just general knowledge that she has, and the relationships that she has with our tenants and with the FAA and everyone else. So she's certainly going to be missed, and I really appreciate the fact that she was willing to help find her replacement. But it's going to be a steep curve for anybody who gets into that position. And then last but not least, of course, is the Bluff project. So we've been working through the contract with HDR. We expect to get a complete cost proposal from them next week. That will likely result in additional financial negotiations with them, depending on what they come through as a cost proposal. I did get a message from Senator Sullivan's office earlier this week that he's meeting with the Alaska District Commander of the Corps next week, and they've asked for basically a historical summary up to date on the Bluff project. So I'll be getting that to them later this week to make sure that Senator Sullivan has everything he needs to meet with the Alaska District Commander. And that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions of the city manager? Councilman Glendenning?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yeah, I guess current phrase of art is circling back. Okay, we hear that quite a bit on the TV, so I'll use, can we circle back to the idea of city lands that are for sale, not airport and whatnot, and do we have something that's workable if an individual is wanting to buy a piece of property? Is there a negotiation mechanism or a way to have someone present their desires?
Mr. Oster.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Glendenning. Yeah, if someone comes in and they'd like to purchase a piece of property, we have a mechanism. Code allows us to sell the property right now. One of the things that I think council's been waiting on since I promised it about 3 years ago is this land management plan that inventories all of the land and really provides a mechanism where if someone is interested in city property, they have the ability to come in and say, I'd like a 2-acre piece of property, and I'd like it to have city water and sewer. I'd like it to be zoned rural residential and be within a half mile of the highway. This land management plan will allow us to do that, and we're not quite there yet. I have told Ryan Foster that I want the first work session to council for that land management plan to be in May. So we can finally get that through the process. It's going to take a work session with council. It's going to take a work session with every one of the commissions, and then a final work session with council. But I guess to answer your question, which I'm elaborating beyond what you asked, if someone right now wants to come in and purchase a piece of property, we will work with them, and there is a mechanism to make it happen.
Okay, yeah, thank you. There was someone who was involved, and they were told that, spring is, and now's the time, and you gave a clear answer, and so maybe there'll be a phone call. Thank you.
Councilmember Winger.
Yes, I have a question, Paul. Obviously the airport model happened before I took the seat, but I recently had family come to town, and we decided we were going to go eat at the airport, and I had them meet me there, and they were confused and lost on really where the restaurant would be because there's no real signage. Is there any plan to put out a sign that says Brothers Cafe and the upper deck so that we can better announce the presence of those two businesses in our location and maybe help drive business in that may be confused?
Mr. Ostrander?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Winger, that sign is something that I know Mary and I have talked about for a while, and I believe there still is plans to put a sign out by Willow. So kind of right, I don't know why I don't just have Mary tell you, because she'll tell you better than I can, but there is plans for a sign out on Willow that would indicate the tenants that are in the terminal building so that people would know that Brothers Cafe and the upper deck are in there.
Do we have any maybe ball game on like when we could get that sign in? I know I think Brothers Cafe's contract's due to be renewed. Maybe that would be an encouragement to get them to renew as well, because we want to keep that area full. And then we just really want to be able to drive our traffic in off that road to go in and eat and use those facilities. So is there a time frame maybe?
Mr. Ostrander?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Winger, I am going to punt to Mary now to see if she can provide a time frame. I'm not sure if she has one, or I'm not sure what it is.
Mayor Gabriel, members of council, there currently is some signs on Willow Street on the light poles with the short-term parking. They're about like this big. They're not very big, but the terminal landscaping plan also will include some signage and some other things that we need to do, and there is money appropriated in the budget this year that Public Works is going to handle and put it out. There's several things that need to be addressed with that terminal landscaping plan, and hopefully we can get some signage close to the terminal on that. And the other sign that I think Mr. Ostrander was talking about was a big sign. I've had it in the budget for a couple of years, and that's also in the landscaping, and it'll have slots out on Willow Street, so a lot more exposure with that. But there are signs out there, but they're small because they're on the poles.
I didn't even see them, so
Yeah.
thank you.
We don't have any intention of putting anything on the building with the siding because it's just irreplaceable. So hopefully we'll have something there this before summer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the city manager? Councilmember Naxton?
Yes, I'm excited to hear that Windhaven Phase 4 is starting to move forward after 22 years. And I did have some involvement in that subdivision, the other phases in that. But I was curious, the 31 lots, are they going to be served by both city water and sewer? There's city water through there that's approved, I think, but I'm not sure about the sewer.
Mr. Ostrander?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Naxted, yes, it'll be city water and sewer. Mr. Curtin and I have worked with Mr. Hall extensively over the last 5 to 6 months to put a process in place that can assure the city that the sewer that has been installed there meets our standards and should be fully functional for an extended period of time. But yes, the plans right now are water and sewer to all 31.
Excellent. It's good to hear. And the other one that is just of curiosity is the eagle cam. I see eagles that live near me are starting to nest now. Just wondering.
Mr. Ostrander?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Naxted, the Eagle Cam is fully up and functional. The eagles aren't there yet. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to Dan Castamore today, and he said last year on April 22nd, the female landed in the nest and immediately laid an egg. So there was no like precursor where they were there and we would expect it. She landed and laid an egg. So we're hoping the same thing happens this year, because right now it's up and running. There's actually people watching this empty nest, and they'll chat anytime an eagle flies even close. But right now we don't have a mating pair in the nest, so we're hoping that they're going to come in. If not, we'll be fully ready for next year.
Well, I hope it happens. The nest near us and a lot of them, it's every other year, but you know, maybe that nest is different. I'll get online and find it. It must be on the city website, right?
It is.
Any other questions of the city manager? Seeing none, we'll move to city attorney, Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I have no report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of the city attorney? Seeing none, we'll move to City Clerk, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I don't have a report, but I wanted to add to Mayor Gabriel's comments about Dr. Hansen's celebration of life that the City Council, pursuant to your recognition policy, made a $150 donation to the Boy Scouts America Great Alaska Council in lieu of flowers for Dr. Hansen's celebration of life. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Any questions of the City Clerk? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to public comments. Is there anybody from the general public at this time that would like to address the council on any item?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Very good. With that, we'll go to council comments. Councilmember Glendenning.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yeah, I too attended the Don Young event, and it was quite entertaining. I hadn't seen him for a while. I met him in Jordan, Montana, some years ago. He was out there mule deer hunting, and so was I. And just passed. He had quite an entourage with him, but that was then, and this is now. And he has a cane, and I don't yet. But I too went to the Doc Pete, and I don't do well at those things. I really don't. I'm choked up right now. But I just like to remember him. I never medically was involved with him, but the first time I met him was probably in the spring, somewhere around 1970. And there's a group of us doing what 20-some-year-olds do on a nice spring night. And they were coming up Pickle Hill, and HB spilled his motorcycle and got all scuffed up. And the hospital wasn't really up and running yet. What do we do? I said, oh, well, we'll get a hold of Doc Hansen. Okay, so we scraped him up, threw him in a pickup truck. It came back later for the motorcycle, and went over there, and we're out there waiting. And he shows up, and he goes in and gets HB all fixed up, and actually gave him just a little note for his employer, stating his condition and how he's going to recover. And of course, I was off dealing with the motorcycle, but I ran across HB 2 days later in Larry's club. Okay. But he was just so happy with Doc Pete and the care that he got, and the counseling that maybe we made one too many stops, like at the Ace of Clubs or something. But that's water over the dam, and I have fond memories of him. A fine gentleman, and I've worked with him on several different things. And I was just pleased with his dedication and his actually insight as to how a problem or situation could be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Askin.
I went to the opening night of the Penny Ann Cross Art Show and sale. They have some really nice prints and stuff there. I did not realize that she had lived in Alaska for several years and in fact passed away in Alaska in 2016. I've also been working with the Chamber and been doing some of the vouchers for the Shop Local program. And interestingly, there's still a lot of people that are trying to submit grocery vouchers. It's kind of funny. That's kind of been over. But it's moving along at a pretty good clip. I think we might actually spend most of the money that we budgeted for that. And enjoy the sunshine. It's awfully nice out.
Amen. Councilmember Winger.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to talk about some of the upcoming events coming in our community. So the Compass in Nikiski is doing a chili cook-off May 1st at 3 o'clock. Brothers Cafe is going to be doing a new chili recipe that they'll be carrying in their restaurant, and they'll be submitting it in this chili cook-off. The Compass, on average, has 40 to 50 kids daily in their program. It's definitely a growing program, but they do serve quite a few youth in our community. So it'd be a great event to get into. And if you like chili or can cook chili, maybe win an award. We have the chamber event coming up on May 22nd. Tickets should be coming available for that. It's Monte Carlo themed, should be fun. Prom happened this past weekend. It was put on by parents, and it was extremely successful. I could say, one of the best looking proms I've ever seen happen. And I'm a little jealous that parents didn't take the initiative when I was in high school to give us such a great prom. So kudos to all the parents that made that possible for our students. As well as we have the Kenai Kite Festival coming up that the Parks and Rec is doing. That will be May 29th at 10 a.m. I also wanted to note with Easter passing that the KSRM Easter egg was found again this year in Kenai at the docks. So Kenai is a very, very popular spot to find that $2,000 egg. I too want to give condolences to Dr. Hansen. He was the first man I ever laid eyes on, second out into the world. I got the privilege to meet him quite a few times. He came into my restaurant, would eat frequently, and said, I had to catch you as a baby, and I still have to try to catch you. So he was a very witty, great man, definitely a great pillar in our community, and he'll be greatly missed. One of the biggest events coming up for me would be the Mountain View Bike Rodeo. They just set the date to be in May 12th. And if you're not familiar, I've talked about this bike rodeo once before. The bike rodeo really partners with a lot of different entities. So we partner with the Kenai Police Department, and they come up and they set up out an obstacle course for these kids. They teach them correct signals, safety tips. Ultimately, some of these officers are teaching these kids to ride a bike for their very first time. So they're truly a pillar in making that successful. And during this event, kids have the option from Safe Kids to purchase helmets for $5. And those helmets, if you go to a store, those are $30 bike helmets. So it's a great thing to offer helmets at an affordable cost for families. The teacher, Barb Ralston, has been a pillar in our community teaching kids. She's the one that puts this on. And she wrote a note for me to read to council because she does need more support this year. So she does need people that could volunteer their time and come and make this event successful. And she just wanted to say that the reason why that she's so passionate about making sure this is successful is because she had one of her first graders killed riding his bike without a helmet. And then a couple years later, she had another student that got hit on their bike and killed as well that wasn't wearing a helmet. Both of those being local kids. So that gave her the encouragement to start a program and to kind of fulfill that need with the students. So if anybody can pass their background check with the borough school district, they do need volunteers and support making this event as successful as possible. They have roughly 340 students in their school this year. About 110 of those kids will be participating in this bike rodeo. So it was a big event. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun, and I encourage everybody to come out and be involved and support the youth. Thank you.
What day was that again, Councilmember Warner?
That is May 12th.
Councilmember Petty.
Yes, I too wanted to acknowledge Peter Hansen, a gentleman who was a wonderful contributor. He was a giver to our community, and whether or not his legacy will always be remembered in our town, and he put a huge footprint here. And I'm very thankful and blessed that I had the privilege to know Mr. Hansen, and I'm thankful for his family's generosity to our city. Also, I wanted to thank Mary Bondurant I'm very thankful that I had the privilege to know her, and I wanted to thank her for all of her faithful, dedicated service to the city. And her shoes, even though she has tiny feet, her shoes are huge to fill. And her contribution to our city is greatly enhanced because of her beautiful generosity. So thank you, and we will greatly miss you, but we hope that you won't be a stranger to our space. That ends my comments.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Yes, like my colleagues, I want to also offer my condolences to Mrs. Hanson and the family on the passing of Dr. Hanson, and thank Mayor Gabriel for the proclamation that he did for their service and today. It's really thoughtful and also, you know, as my colleagues have noted, he was, Dr. Hanson was very involved in our public process too. I mean, I recall when we were working on the comprehensive plan in 2011 through 2013, he came to a lot of the work sessions and was particularly focused on Millennium Square and, you know, advocating for a convention center there if we ever fix the bluff, and tourism. Definitely was a supporter of tourism and wanting to bring tourism to the community. So you know, he wasn't just focused on you know, what was good for him and his family. He was focused on the best interests of the city, and I, you know, like everyone else, I really appreciated that. I wanted to thank the airport director, Ms. Bondurant, for the information item in our packet tonight, the airport land brochure, you know, of Kenai Municipal Airport, your commercial air transportation gateway to the Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet. It's really outstanding, really put together well, and you know, another reason why we've gone from the trailers that you know, talked about in the proclamation to where we're at now and looking to the future. So that's really a good thing. Also, you know, if you don't mind, I'd certainly like to be a sponsor on the ordinance that you talked about for the donation of the property for you know, low-income housing and senior housing. There's really is the need there, and that was a really good presentation, so I would like to do that. Also, you know, last year, former council member Navarre and myself, we sponsored a resolution supporting what was then House Bill 198, offered by Representative Josephson, which proposed to amend a state statute to on crimes on penalties for crimes to include a sexual orientation as a aggravating factor for sentencing, because it wasn't, and that was based on a lot of violence that had happened in the community at that time, and it really never made it out of committee. But he's got another one, which is a new number, HB 51, basically identical to the one that council supported when they passed that resolution. So, you know, since that's in front of them, and they've reached out again to communities to see if, you know, if there's support for that, I'm going to bring one forward for council to discuss at the next meeting, because they're going to still be in session. And so that's. Oh, and I also appreciate the presentation that we had from Alaska Christian College. That was pretty fantastic. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Knoxton.
Thank you. I appreciated hearing everything that was said about Dr. Hanson, and I'd appreciate the you know, your proclamation as well. And I did attend the service, and Doc Hanson's just been a fixture here pretty much forever for me, and like you said, he's always a giver, and that's what he's been doing. And I heard some of the things that, you know, we know he's been doing, but I think there's a lot of other things behind the scenes that we don't know that we might eventually, you know, that are in the works one way or the other. And he was also the secretary and treasurer on the Kenai Community Foundation, and it was interesting when at the service, his daughter was talking about him and just rules, and some of the other folks too, just all the things that he followed, and it was exactly what he did there. I mean, it was almost to the point where, okay, well, this is what it says here, we got to do, and we got to do it, and kind of a rule mini, if that's a proper term. I mean, it's just, okay, we got to do this, and I'm really glad to have had him on the board, because he kind of squared us up in when we were supposed to do each quarter and all of that, and established this and that, and it was very good, and I think that's just how he organized his life too, in a very ordered way that way. And at any rate, he'll be greatly missed by me and many people here in the city. And Mary, I'm not sure what to say. I know when I was here, I was a airport chairman when you arrived from Kodiak, and you worked for a couple of different airport managers, and then you took over the job, and it's like, well, and then you've just really grown in that position to the point where I just can't see the airport without you. It's almost like we ought to name the terminal for you, or the airport, or something, or a ramp, or I don't know. But whatever is appropriate. well, without the runway or a ramp, you don't have an airport, and I guess you can have an airport without a terminal. But okay, we could do it an approach light. How's that? But anyway, we could name all of these things. But at any rate, it's been wonderful having you, Mary. And I mean, anything we would name wouldn't be enough anyhow for all the things that you've contributed to the airport. If you think of something that we should name, we'll consider it. How's that? But thank you very much, and you're going to be greatly missed. Last couple of things, I've been preparing for our meeting on Saturday, going through the budget, and as always, Terry's done a wonderful job, and everyone else that's contributed to the budget book, going through that, and it takes a while to be able to really comprehend all those tables and numbers and everything like that. And fortunately, I've been here long enough that's going on, and I just picked up the draft city capital improvement plan, which I probably got time tonight. I can start reading through it, and I appreciate that. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. I was just going to close on a little Mary story. So she started when I first started at DOT in 1997. The airport maintenance and operations was handled out of at least the electrical side was handled out of Anchorage. And within, I think, 3 days after I got hired, there was a fire down in the vault down there. It's this prehistoric Navy vault. And so I flew down there, and because I just got hired, and they were going to transfer that responsibility over to me. And I met Mary because she was in our M&O, our DOT office down there. And I don't know if it was that trip or maybe the next trip when I was coming back. Mary was asking how much, if I had any room coming back to Kenai. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I've got an overnight bag or whatever. I said, what do you got going on? She says, well, I got this package I'd like to have you deliver for me up there. So I said, sure, So, well, it turns out to be a 20-pound silver that she brought up to get mounted, which is, I think, the biggest silver I've ever seen. So we were just talking about it during break, but I thought I would share. So very impressive, and we wish you the best, Mary, and thank you for all the hard work you've done over there, and all through getting us through the terminal rehab and all the things that we've done over there. So with that, we have no pending items or executive session before this body. We are adjourned.
Yes.